Back on TYT Sports for our final clip wrapping up week 1 of the NFL. If you are watching this and you have not checked out our best and worst, please do. A lot of fun on those clips to wrap up what was a very interesting week 1. But one of the major headlines that is very news-related, something that's been covered by these two guys you see to my right for a lot through the main show as well on TYT, has to do with Colin Kaepernick's protest, which has led to multiple other NFL stars also taking a stand or a kneel or a fist, whatever which way you want to put it, and it's now being picked up every single week. So a few of the photos that went around before I throw it to both Ben and JR to give their perspective of this whole situation. The Dolphins, including Arian Foster, which was the big name on the sideline, but alongside other guys, you see Thomas there, and Jarvis Landry was not, but you can see just from the images. We'll keep going through. Marcus Peters put his fist in the air. A lot of teams were united in their way, including, Ben, I know you like this one just because, as you mentioned, Pete Carroll would have his hand around him. He's right in the middle. He's right in the middle, and we were discussing this a little bit last week, and the Titans also. Lastly, from the other side of that, Danny Amendola was holding the American flag on Sunday Night Football. So, again, for every one person you're seeing making their point, there's other players who have their say on it as well. Ben, JR, please take it away.
Well, first of all, so Danny Amendola was holding the flag. Arguing that the guys who took a knee don't love America.
No, I'm not.
No, you're not.
You're not.
But arguing that those guys don't love America or don't respect the military is like saying Danny Amendola is a racist, right? For holding the flag. It's a nonsensical argument.
Yes.
One doesn't have anything to do with that. Good for Danny Amendola. I'm sure that was nice for him.
Absolutely.
And good for those guys.
Just pointing out both sides, that's all.
I like the Black Power fist. It's certainly not for me to say whether I like it or not, but I do nonetheless like it because it is a way of saying I'm standing for the flag, and I am also asserting a word that I loathe, that I'm about to use, but I am asserting my agency in this matter, and doing it to me in a completely respectful way. Not a sane person in the world doesn't now side with Tommy Smith and John Carlos from Mexico City in 1968. They got crap then, but now we know better. So
lives and careers were destroyed.
So for those guys on the Titans and for Marcus Peters, if you're criticizing them, shut it. I think it's totally, every guy who takes this stand, I respect. I'm sure I would stand. And here's one reason why I would stand, certainly right now at least. I wouldn't have had the courage to not stand on September 11th.
Right.
I wrote down my note here. Dolphins players who took a knee doing it on 9/11 is both foolish and courageous. Like, foolish because it could really hurt him. I mean, we saw what happened with Brandon Marshall in Denver. Yeah. He lost a sponsorship. So it's foolish in the sense that it could hurt you, and you don't have to do it, right? But it's undeniably courageous.
There's many guys, I'm sure, that stood and did the appropriate or accepted thing for the majority of the country, is what it seems the majority of the country wants these players to do, and they probably wanted to. So you're talking about the courage in that. And the courage is getting by what you know is going to maybe be harmful for you and do it because of what you stand for, which is fine. So I just want to name a couple other guys that did it. We flashed some of the pictures, but Martellus Bennett, Devin McCourty from the Patriots also stood with fist in there. Arian Foster, Jelani Jenkins, Kenny Stills, Michael Thomas from the Dolphins. And we also showed Marcus Peters as they linked arms the same way that the Seahawks did, but he was at the end and he decided to do a little bit of both. So I just want to throw some more of the names out there. I didn't get the Titans players. But so with that courage, at least with that, especially on the weekend of an actual anniversary, 15th anniversary of 9/11, it was specifically, I guess, powerful because a lot of the anthems that were being sung and the stretches of the flag that were being shown were doing it in this show of unity and basically saying, I dare you to, because they know that, exactly what you're saying. Right. They know that this is going to be particularly tough for people. But, so, by the way, I noticed later, I didn't see the full things that happened, but there was addresses from President W. Bush and Obama after each of these national anthems at every game. And many people booed President Obama when he had the pre-taped speech went out.
Yeah, I saw it.
Slightly ironic.
It's a great speech.
If we're talking about unity, I mean, if we're going to get by all of our political differences, and this is for the remembrance of 9/11 victims, I mean, by the way, I think they can boo Obama all they want. By the way, you can do everything you want. But if you think that people aren't supposed to show their opinion and their belief and where they stand on whatever issues, you shouldn't do it either. I mean, if we're talking about unity behind a president, behind a country on a very memorable day,
there's been a mind-numbing amount of hypocrisy when it comes to this entire situation. And one of the things that I feel is important to note in this is that, for one, we're probably going to see this for the entire season. I don't think this was something specific to the remembrance of September 11th.
Unless we solve our racial issues by like week 6.
I don't know if football.
Could happen,
I don't know if
right?
football's that powerful, Ben Mank. I know it's very important in American culture. I don't know if it's
I think October 18th.
powerful.
Solved.
However,
Done.
there's two important notes to make. For one, there's money being donated to communities now, right? That maybe would not have ever gotten that kind of financial help, and whether they need it or not, and how you look at which communities. Why does that one community in San Francisco get it when maybe a community in Detroit needs it, or North Dakota, wherever? I'm just saying, the point being is that there's positive change coming, at least in the terms of financial reimbursement to places
And a lot of
that
people
need it.
sorry.
In addition to that, and again, I tried to my best here to at least show both sides of the argument, because, again, this is not something that is overwhelmingly in favor of what everyone on this panel is saying. There's an entire market out there that can't stand people sitting for the national anthem, and that is their right. They are allowed to express their opinions, whether we agree with them or not. So in addition to that, Charles Woodson was saying, because he was talking on ESPN, this is the same thing that was monitored, I should say also shared by Arian Foster, which I can read his exact words, which were, quote, "They say it's not the time to do this. When is the time? It's never the time in somebody else's eye, because they'll always feel like it's good enough, and some people don't. That's the beautiful thing about this country. If somebody feels it's not good enough, they have that right. That's all we're doing, exercising that right," to which Charles Woodson echoed, saying, "You're supposed to get the most exposure when you're making an objective protest. That's one way to get a lot of exposure."
Yeah, of course this is the right time to do it. That's why it's courageous, and that's why doing it on September 11th was a harder thing to do. And so I admire those guys. And if they had separated the national anthem, if they'd separated the flag from the first responders, every one of those guys would have stood and applauded first responders. Of course they would have, right? That's not the issue in any way. The issue is solely, has this country done right by minorities? And is there an issue? Mostly what we're, of course, talking about is police violence against unarmed black men. And is that an issue worth taking a stand over or taking a seat over? Of course it is. And doing it on September 11th is courageous. I also think it's worth noting very quickly that we got a peculiar message from September 11th. And by September 11th was the worst terror attack in the history, obviously, of this country. And most Americans died since Pearl Harbor. And a day worth remembering, and there are lessons to learn there. Among the lessons that we learned from September 11th is that maybe we should pay a little bit of attention to how we respond to it, because we responded by invading the wrong country, and we responded by accepting a degree of surveillance state which we didn't really give a lot of thought or talk to. Now, maybe we're comfortable with it. Maybe it's what we wanted, but we never talked about it, and as a result, we rammed the Patriot Act through. And then we allowed ourselves to be put in a position where Edward Snowden could reveal regardless of whether you think Edward Snowden should go to prison or not, to reveal information that when it finally was revealed, we stopped doing it, right? So we made peculiar decisions. I think we got the wrong message. We got some right messages. We came together as a country for couple of days. That was nice. But we drew some peculiar messages from September 11th. And draping a memory of September 11th in the flag strikes me as an effort perhaps overt or perhaps less clear. But what it ends up doing is, again, strangling this idea, this notion of dissent and discussion over these incredibly important issues, because now if you talk about it on September 11th, you're somehow disrespecting the flag. I don't care about the flag. I love America. I think we are the greatest country in the world, and I think we ought to talk about these things, and we ought to be prudent and thoughtful in how we proceed, even in the face of anger and frustration after events like September 11th.
There's proof that they're trying to conflate these things with American flag, military, and the remembrance of victims of September 11th. They had a moment where they remembered September 11th victims. And they had a moment with, obviously, the national anthem. those moments when they're remembering the victims, all these players, at least the ones at the Dolphins, stood up and remembered those people because they're not disrespecting them. They're not saying, oh, F those guys who died on September 11th. Obviously, that's separate. Right. So, but the fact that that's not getting broadcast and shown to everyone is obviously a way to not show us these differences and what's actually happened at these games. We want to continue to mash all of it together. Number two, everyone's Americans, right? Everyone that's a citizen of this country is an American. So when we say the American flag, oh, we're respecting the military. So, I mean, it's my flag too. I've never served. I have pride in my flag too. So I don't get to do what I want. I don't get to embrace it the way I'd like to because I didn't serve in the military. That's never been the way it has been. We're deciding to make the flag just for the military. And if you're not standing for it, you're this sub-member of society and it only belongs to the military. That's just not the case. We all contribute to this country or are supposed to. And if you do that, then you have
contribute more.
Then you have something to do with the country, right? We all make it great. And lastly, everybody who's complaining when you're sitting at home and you're watching these ceremonies, you're looking for the guys very detailed. Who's standing? Who's kneeling? Who's got their hand up? What's going on? If you're doing that at home, are you standing up? Is your hat off? Did you drop the fucking chips? Are you standing there and celebrating the military at home when they can't see you? If you're not, you're a hypocrite. You're a hypocritic liar, and you're un-American. There's many curse words I keep swallowing.
Yeah, we can't now. We can't now.
But you're a hypocrite.
And very quickly, what we have learned, social media has helped. We got to go, but you know, Colin Kaepernick's jersey is the third, and he's a backup quarterback, right? Right. I mean, it's like Don Strock's jersey being the third highest selling.
But can we at least pick somebody from 2010 and on? We got to wrap it up.
Again, it's not. But to JR's point, it's not. It turns out, and thankfully, it's not as one-sided as we thought. These guys are getting a lot of respect across the country.
Comment below, like, favorite, subscribe. Come back next week for week 2 of Turks and Jerks.